It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show! Hey everybody! It's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey, gang.
And Les Webster.
Hello, all.
How are you guys doing?
Doing all right.
Doing fine. And you?
Doing all right. Hope everybody out there is doing okay. So, what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
Well, now that we're done doing our research for our secret project, I have time to start watching other things. And so last night I sat down and watched the first of the new episodes of The Tick on Amazon Prime.
Woohoo!
As far as I can tell, there are only 5 new episodes. They list the pilot as number 1, so there's now 6 episodes on there.
Okay.
And they run about roughly 25 minutes or so. The first one, what is episode 2 in there. I have to say, I was happy with it, for sure. It was definitely a little, the pilot was a little on the dark side. Episode 2 is a little funnier. So it's got a good balance of the two. Because obviously the darkness is there, because the darkness, I don't want to spoil too much, the darkness focuses on Arthur. And there are some interesting issues there. And I am curious to see how Dot plays into all of this. Dot is Arthur's sister. I am not that familiar with Dot from the comics. Most of my experience with Dot is from the animated series, and Dot was pretty much a non-entity. Dot is not a non-entity in this series. She has the potential to be a complete badass, and I am going to really enjoy the hell out of it if they do that with her. But yeah, so far I'm liking it.
That's cool. I think you're the first person I've heard from on that series. So yeah, it's nice to hear a plus right off the bat.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised I haven't heard anybody else talking much about it either. I don't know, maybe not that many people have Amazon Prime, but I do, so I'm watching it.
Yeah, I hadn't heard anything since the pilot. I hadn't heard any kind of feedback since that, so
Yeah, it's actually been up for a better part of a month, and I just haven't. I kind of got sidetracked doing other stuff and hadn't had a chance to watch it yet. But given that now that I've only got like 4 more half-hour episodes to go, it won't take me long to get through the rest.
Right. Alrighty. Les?
Well, I was pretty full this weekend. I read the first book of DC's Tangent series, Superman's Reign, which I have enjoyed thoroughly, because it's a new look at DC characters on another world, or another Earth. And in this series, some of the Justice League members are pulled into this other Earth to battle the tyrant Superman. So this gives you a different look. It's kind of got a Elseworlds feel to it, but it's also a really good standalone idea of a different world. I also picked up a copy of DC's Showcase, The Atom, which is reprinting, I think, like 20 issues, beginning with the origin from Showcase. And as a result, it's been a great read to see the artwork of Gil Kane and Murphy Anderson, as well as Gardner Fox's plots, for a totally new character that came around in the 60s. And then of course, on television, movies was playing count them three Dracula movies in a row, starting with Bela Lugosi, and then following with Daughter of Dracula and Son of Dracula, with Lon Chaney Jr. in the title role as Count Alucard.
Yeah.
So it was a great evening just to sit down and reminisce over these three films.
Oh, yeah. And I gotta say, Dracula's Daughter is a much better movie than I think a lot of people give it credit for. From just my opinion. I actually think I like it.
I have to agree. It was enjoyable. It's not as hokey as people were trying to think it was.
Right. I mean, was it tremendously original? No, but, it kind of didn't need to be. I mean, I thought it was cool that they went with a daughter instead of just going straight to the son. And so it made it, I mean, I don't want to say progressive for the time, but it at least was a bit of a twist in that regard. Which
I agree.
I think added to it.
Yep. I still hadn't seen that one. I need to.
I bet we can arrange something.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure someone may have a copy of that. I'm not gonna point any fingers at a particular direction, Mike, but I'm sure someone has it.
I think I might be able to scrounge that one up.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny you talk about that because I caught the tail end of something. I don't remember it. But I didn't realize that TCM... I should have known TCM's doing horror movies on Tuesday nights, which, of course, makes sense since Tuesday nights, the 31st Halloween will be on a Tuesday night. So, and kind of behind the curtain, I've kind of mentioned this before, that we record on Tuesdays. I am watching Bride of Frankenstein right now as we're recording.
Oh, cool.
Frankenstein was just on, and it's about to be followed by the original Mummy and the original Wolfman. So I'm kind of locked for the next few hours after we finish recording.
It's good to have plans.
Mm-hmm. For me, in addition to getting kind of caught up on reading, I got a little behind, like we always seem to do. I have to admit it. Something that I kind of started doing a few months ago that I said I would never do, but I did, or I would never do again, but I did. But I'm hooked on a certain game on Facebook.
Oh no!
When I first started Facebook, I got hooked in all those games, and I stopped because I got really tired of. They all became dependent on you having to help others and others help you, and the thing was I would help, but I would not receive the help, so I could not get things accomplished. So I said, just screw it. So a few months ago, and Les knows this because he's seen me play some of them, but I just kind of started up again, but I wasn't doing the games that were dependent on other people. It was just for me. But I came across one that I'm really hooked on. It's kind of fun. I've only been playing it for about maybe a week now. I know Mike's gonna have mixed feelings about it. It's called Star Trek Timelines.
Hey, an actual licensed Star Trek game on Facebook? That's funny.
Yes. There's actually a couple, and then there's a couple of Star Wars, but the Star Wars are all on our mobile apps. Where this one, obviously, I can do on a computer, desktop or laptop or whatever. It's a kind of fun game. It's not just a point and click. There's actually some strategy to it because you're trying to accomplish these missions, and you have to assemble your away team, and you have to pick, of course, ones who have the best skills to give you the best chance of completing the mission. And it's been kind of fun so far. Like I said, I'm not too far into it, but it's been kind of fun. But they have some of the voices that they're using some of the lines from all the shows. but I think they actually brought in John Delancey to do some of the new dialogue because it's hosted by Q because it's obviously, as you can tell, it's a total screw up of different timelines and alternate universes and all that kind of stuff kind of being melded into one, and you're the captain of a starship trying to piece together what's going on and as well as try to deal with other things that are going on in the galaxy. So it's been kind of fun, especially when you're away for a while and you get back on, because they've got John Delancey to make some special comments. Like there was one where it was like, "Well, I hope you had a good time on Ryza or wherever you were." And another one was that Picard would not have made me wait this long. And just a couple other ones. It's cute because it gets you to laugh and kind of gets you kind of in the spirit of what you're about to do. It's been kind of fun. The thing is, it's pretty up to date because one of the first crew members I unlocked is from Destiny.
Discovery?
Or Discovery. Yeah, sorry, Discovery. I don't know where I got Destiny, but yeah, Discovery. And I thought, okay, that's pretty neat. I mean, I'm sure the game's been around for a while, and I just hadn't come across it. But yeah,
cool.
So it's a fun game. Of course, it's free, but if you want some of the really cool-looking bells and whistles, you have to pay for those. That's kind of like just like any of the other games, pretty much.
That's the whole point.
Mm-hmm. So
that is cool.
Alrighty, before we get into this week's topic, take a couple moments to thank our sponsor, Things from Another World, the fine folks there, for sponsoring the Fellowship of the Geeks. Currently, they're just running the Evergreen deals. I'm sure that will be changing here sometime soon, because we're not that far away from thinking about Christmas and all of that. We gotta start thinking about that kind of stuff. So.
Do we have to?
Well, I mean, I've already seen commercials for Hallmark Channel starting up their countdown to Christmas on October 27th. So I'm like,
before Halloween.
Yes.
Dang, that's rough.
That is rough. So
the Christmas decorations will be up a week before that.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure there's Christmas stuff up already in all the retail stores. But anyway, here's some of the deals that they're running. There's their evergreen deals. Obviously, the 40% off comic statues, toys, and merchandise. 30% off pre-ordered manga titles, and the ever great deal of 50% off Nick and Dent comics and graphic novels. So if you go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, click on our sponsors tab, you'll see information for Things from Another World and some links that will take you to their website. And that lets them know that we sent you their way, and go ahead and take advantage of some of these great deals that they're running. Alrighty. Last week we started our month-long look at the horror classics from John Carpenter with the Fog. And today we are following up with the first of what has now become known as the first third of the Apocalypse trilogy, with 1982's The Thing, which is actually a remake of a 1950. I got that up there. 1951. Although the film that was, it's funny because I'm already getting sidetracked. How John Carpenter's The Thing, if you see the opening, it calls itself The Thing from Another World. but it is known as John Carpenter's The Thing.
Yes.
Where the 1951 film is The Thing from Another World. So it's the same title, but somehow over time things have kind of changed. It's kind of interesting.
Well,
but both,
a lot of things have changed about this movie over time, but we'll get to that.
Yeah. But both films are based off a short story that was written by John W. Campbell Jr. called Who Goes There? If you have not seen The Thing, kind of a little bit of a little brief synopsis. It's about a group of scientists on the Antarctic, right? If I'm not mistaken, is that where they were at?
Yeah, the Antarctic.
Yeah, just a research station and all that. And they're pulled into a mystery of what had happened on a Norwegian camp, or as Kurt Russell's character said, kept calling them Swedes, which I'm like, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cold. Of them discovering a flying saucer buried way beneath the ice, and of course there was an occupant in there, and all hell breaks loose. That's pretty good, tight synopsis there, I think. So who would like to go first with their thoughts of this film?
I'll try.
Thank you. You'll try.
To me, this was very well done, but I did not see it as a horror movie. I saw it as a more suspense movie. Who is it? Who is infected? And in the novella you were talking about, it's interesting because the whole group there at the ice station was being affected and infected. They ended up destroying any mode of transportation they had to try to keep the monster there, and several of the people became affected by the alien form. So you had several pseudo-aliens around there. This movie was closer to the story than the 1951 version, which I do still champion, because you have to think of what was going through the minds of the public at that time. You have aliens, you have the possibility of radiation, nuclear power, things like that. Carpenter, to his credit, leaned a lot closer to the novella and successfully pulled it off. I was not disappointed, and there were effectively a couple of jump moments in this movie also. Those scenes that you know are going to come, you know it's going to happen right then, yet you still leave your seat. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good watch, and it's one of those that can be watched any time during the year, not necessarily at the Halloween season. I can see that becoming my go-to movie for Christmas. I'm tired of seeing Christmas stories, so let's put on The Thing and see how things go.
So are we saying The Thing is the Christmas film?
I think it is. I think it's more of a Christmas film than Die Hard, but hey.
Yeah.
At least in The Thing they have cold weather.
They do. They're not in LA, but yeah, that's okay. They don't have Christmas music in this movie though. But I digress.
Yeah.
I agree with you about you said with the the suspense thing as opposed to the horror. I, I was I kind of had forgotten this movie. I'd seen it years ago and had kind of forgotten it until I watched it again recently. I was a little surprised at how little they attempted to hide the monsters. I mean, if you want to make this a horror story, a horror movie, you're gonna not be showing the monsters quite so much. But they kind of had a ball with the special effects in this movie.
Yeah.
Which, for the time, I think were not bad. Were they the greatest? Probably not, but I mean, people weren't doing this sort of thing at the time either. So, for what they did, for what it was, I thought the effects were pretty good. And I liked actually that it was more suspense than horror.
Yeah.
It still tickles me that if I have a problem with it's the whole science fiction thing, because the only thing about this movie that's science fiction is the fact that the creature is an alien.
Right.
And that's not 100% given. That's heavily implied, but it didn't necessarily have to be, sort of thing. But anyway, but yeah, I actually liked it quite a bit. I like this one. This is one of his better movies, in my opinion.
I'm a fan of this one as well. Surprise, surprise. Yeah, I can agree with you about maybe they could have scaled back a little of the alien's appearance and that kind of stuff. Kind of really play up the who's human, who's not, that kind of thing. Although it was played up pretty well as it was.
It was. I mean, I'm not sure, given how much screen time the monsters got.
Yeah.
I'm still willing to debate what the real monster in this movie was. Was it the alien symbiote, or was it simple paranoia? I mean,
Correct.
were the people the bad guys, or was the monster the bad guy? I think it's debatable, but I also don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. Yeah, they could have pulled off this story in the 50s version. Obviously not with the special effects and all that, but because I was thinking about this as we started discussing, and I'm thinking of the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers. How people were replaced by duplicates that were emotionless and that kind of stuff. That's almost the same thing. So I mean, it could have been accomplished back then, but
yeah, there's a little more pulling people's arms off in this one, but
yeah,
which is not quite as cool in the atomic horror age.
Well, yeah, I understand. I understand. But I'm just talking about basing off the original novel or novella.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the original version too, the 51 version. It's kind of a fun little sci-fi horror film, which you can't tell me John Ford did not direct that. I mean, he gets kind of a co-directing credit or whatever, but the way some of that comes off on the screen, especially, and I don't want to get too far into the old show old movies since we're talking about the Carpenter version. But just some of the scenes, I'm like, that seems like right out of John Ford's repertoire. But back to the Carpenter version. It's once again, it's kind of like the fog. There was a nice combination of suspense. Once again, the music works pretty well. I know we're going to get to the point where Mike's not going to like the music in the films, but I think it worked real well for this. Maybe not as well as the fog, but I think he did a pretty good job of kind of giving you a kind of an eerie vibe over the camp. Some great performances. It's a fun little cast, and it's funny because I read up on the original novella, getting ready to do this, and wasn't there like the camp had like what 30 members?
Yes.
I mean, it was a pretty big group, and they basically dwindled it all down to what was it, about a dozen in the film? And by today's standards, that's a pretty big cast for a horror film.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about bit parts. They all had some significant screen time.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and today, I mean, 35 years later, they probably would have, I mean, a movie not, I don't want to say a lot like this, but not unlike this, like, for example, The Cabin in the Woods, you basically got 5 or 6 main characters.
Mm-hmm.
So you're narrowing it down even further and drawing out each character just a little more. I would have actually liked to see a little more character work.
Yeah.
It was, and I don't know that that's entirely fair, I'll admit, because most of the character stuff is just sort of the paranoia thing in this. I mean, it's just such a big part of the movie, such a big part of the story that there isn't much room. Some of these characters you just don't get to know at all. I mean, even though there's only a dozen of them, you're really only dealing with about 5 anyway.
Yeah.
The rest are kind of running along behind the main guys.
They're not cannon fodder, but they're not main characters. They're kind of somewhere in between.
Right. Which you couldn't have done with 30, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you just couldn't to do this in an hour and a half. You just couldn't do that. You could do it as nowadays. You could do it as a 10-episode Netflix series, and make it interesting with that many people. But to do it that spread out, you'd lose the suspense. I think you'd have a hard time maintaining the suspense from episode to episode. So I don't know. Not a great idea, I think, but. Yeah,
I don't know. I'm sure someone's listening to this saying, "Hey, that's a good idea." Remember, you heard it first, and give Mike the credit.
Well, and I say that, but they've done stuff like that. I mean, they do it with American Horror Story every year. They've done it with Bates Motel. They've done it with Fargo. They've done it before.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have not watched most of those, so. I don't know how they did it with Bates Motel. That would be the one I would be interested in comparing. But
I didn't try to watch that one because I know they were going to go far away from the premise of the book and the movies, and I understood that, and I didn't have a problem with it, but it just seemed a little. I just didn't know how you turn it into a series, especially one that lasted 4 or 5 years.
Yeah,
but
you just weren't that curious, basically.
Yeah,
how
pretty
they
much.
Do that. And I mean, it's everybody has to make a choice.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I could see it as a possible, a very limited series, because basically the first part of the series you kind of set things up, and then halfway through is when the shit hits the fan, and then you go from there. That kind of thing, but who knows?
Yeah, you could do a little more setup for what's going on there, and you could explore the Norwegian camp a little more, and they could spend a little more time learning stuff.
Yeah. Well, and developing the characters, like you said, so there'd be a little bit more of a...
Yeah, you do the quasi-normal thing for a while. Before it gets stressful and interaction with people and all that. Yeah.
In the Carpenter version, one of the things I noticed early on is a kind of a terror moment, and in the background you hear the dog howling. That struck me as significant because of course, the alien was in a dog form to begin with. Sorry if I'm spoiling this, but geez, it's been how many years again?
35.
35 years. So I don't see it's a spoiler. But if I remember, Kurt Russell's character was talking. They were outside. And then all of a sudden in the background, I heard the howling of a dog. Now, this is not the dog that came to the camp, but this was one of their dogs. And I found it really timely to fit that in as he is talking and they're discussing that something weird's going on. We know what's going on. They have not discerned it yet. They don't know of a shapeshifter among them. But all of a sudden I hear that dog in the background. I went, now that is eerie. That's a cool timing display right there. I don't know if you guys saw it or noticed it.
I didn't catch that, but I'm going to have to watch it again so I can.
Oh, damn. Have to watch it again, huh?
Yeah.
Terrible.
Back to the salt mines.
Yep. Work.
Hello, boys.
One of the things I've had a discussion with, and I can't remember who I did, this has been a while back. It kind of got on me, but we had a debate on where Blair, who was played by Wilford Brimley, when he changed, or when he got infected. And he said something happened while he was in prison in the tool shed. And I said, no, it was a little bit earlier. It was during the scene where he was going, examining the alien and dog combination. And I had to point him out to what happened. If y'all go back and watch this, he's pointing things out to everybody with his pencil. The pencil that has the eraser with the added eraser. And then at some point he puts it back toward his face. I'm like, that's when he got infected.
He touched his face with it?
If it didn't, he got pretty darn close.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe.
So.
I will say that I like that they plant that there's enough doubt built into this for that it makes it interesting. Right. That's one of the things that makes it interesting. Is that he could have, or it could have happened later, and I mean, but there was so much time passed between those things that it's really impossible to tell.
Right. Well, most of them are kind of that way. Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of them that are pretty obvious, but other ones you're just like, okay, when did this happen? We obviously didn't see it happen, but you're right, and that's kind of a cool thing.
Well, right, and I mean the guy who was the dog guy. I can't remember which one he was. I can't remember the name.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you're sitting there when he's doing the blood test with the burning wire. You're like, how in the hell is that guy not infected already? Because he was alone with that thing for hours at the very beginning.
Yep.
And it's and so it's that kind of playing with it, with the whole concept that makes the that helps build the suspense really by the time you get like to the 3/4 point.
Yeah. And then you get to the one what, can't remember his name right now. The one who was,
there's so many of them I can't keep names straight.
Yeah, the one who was kind of smoking the joint, who was willing to take the doc up on the helicopter. You know who I'm talking about now? The one the one who has one of the two greatest lines in that movie. And it's, you gotta be fucking kidding. You're just like, At what point did he get infected? Because granted, we don't see him much, but you're just like, okay, so when was he alone with the thing? And spoiler,
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. There's several of them that you're just like, okay, when did that happen? When did he get taken over?
Yeah, how did he get infected, but not that guy? And how did that guy get it, but this guy's still clean?
Yeah.
And the biggest problem I have in the whole movie, why the fuck is the pilot in charge? I mean, other than it's Kurt Russell and he's the star, why is he not in charge? I mean, if he's the star, why is he not the guy? Why is he not the leader? And so why do all of these people just automatically start following the pilot, the random drunkard pilot, instead of the leader? That's kind of the one jarring thing for this movie for me. I don't understand. Other than, like I said, it's Kurt Russell, but that's meta. I don't want to think meta. I want to think, why does this make sense? And I mean, other than the fact that MacReady's willing to shoot anything, and actually has a spine, unlike about half of those guys.
Well, here's probably part of the answer, which I did not realize this until I read up about the novella. In the novella, MacReady, the character MacReady, was second in command.
Ah, see, that is I did not remember seeing any part of that in this movie, though.
But that's not referenced in the movie at all. He's just the pilot.
Right.
So it's like they once again, it's one of these that they combine several characters, and you gotta have the second in command. Although, I don't know. It is kind of funny how the pilot, all of a sudden everybody's looking to him for answers and direction, and that kind of, it is kind of funny.
And I can accept the fact that the actual commander,
mm-hmm.
one, they think real fast that he got infected, even though they're wrong. And two, he's not the greatest leader to begin with. I mean, he's a little,
right.
I don't want to say he's spineless, but he definitely freaks out from the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, he's one of the ones that freaks out. I mean, some of them freak out, some of them get by. He's definitely one of the ones that goes, ah!
Yeah, he's one of those that doesn't do well under pressure.
Right.
And this is kind of pressure. There's a little pressure here.
Just a bit, yeah.
Did you find it oppressive as far as the scene layouts? The idea, I know that it's supposed to take place in Antarctica, yet it just seems so dark and suppressing. The idea that the base was so small, that the quarters were extremely small. Yeah.
And there was stuff in the hallway that actually, the stuff on the floor in the hallways that kind of made it even smaller.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I think it was intentional.
Oh yeah. No question. They're trying to. It's a compressed space thing.
It's a claustrophobic thing.
Yep. Yeah. You can't escape because you can't go outside because your ass will freeze to death. And so you're stuck inside this thing, which you're not going to build this palatial mansion because it's freaking Antarctica, and it might not survive 2 years anyway because of glacial shift or whatever. There's reasons. I mean, honestly, storms could blow the damn thing over, but
sure.
Yeah, so you want to, and it adds to the stress. It adds to the tension. The suspense is greater because there's nowhere to run.
Yeah, where can you go?
Flight is not an option, so you have to fight.
Yeah, especially since they've taken out the helicopter and the snowmobile, and they took out the radio. So
good old Blair.
Yeah, so you can't call for help. You can't go out for help. So yeah, you're kind of stuck, and of course it has to be right in the middle of a pretty bad snowstorm too.
I gotta be honest too. I really didn't recognize Wilford Brimley until he started talking. The voice, I was like, and actually for a few minutes I was like, damn, that voice sounds familiar.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, it sounds like Wilford Brimley, but that sure as hell doesn't look like him. It's amazing how different he looks without the beard.
Once again, the mustache.
Facial hair strikes again.
Yeah.
I mean, Kurt Russell has the beard, and Wilford Brimley, of all people, does not. And it's weird. I mean, I can't say I'm surprised by facial hair being an issue in a John Carpenter movie, but anyway.
One of the other things, I think you already mentioned it earlier, is that kind of adds to kind of the paranoia or kind of gets you questioning things, is you see them do, you see figures run and off and go somewhere else, and you're just like, okay, who was that? What was that? What was going on there? Kind of adds to that paranoia, I think, that you were talking about. Right there toward the end, you see someone. We believe it was a child's going out. Okay, why did he go outside? What was he doing? You know.
Right, because he just flat disappears there near the end.
Yeah. It did. So once again, it goes to, okay, is he infected? Of course, and that's how the movie ends. As the movie ends, you're still questioning whoever survived. Are they human? Are they aliens? Is some of them human, some of them alien. I'm not going to say how many survived the film, but it's one of those great questions. And people. And it's funny to this day, because I follow Keith David, who played Childs in the film. He gets asked all the time on Twitter, was Childs human or the thing? He's like, he was human, man.
Of course he was human.
It's like, of course you're going to say that. I'm sure Kurt Russell says that McCready was human, too.
I'm sure
but
he
does. Was he?
Yeah, well, and honestly, it's entirely possible that those guys don't know.
Yep.
I mean, they didn't need to. They didn't need to know for what they were doing for that, and so there may not have been a thing. I also found it interesting that they actually tried a couple of different endings and settled on that one. Apparently, was it the studio? Somebody made them try a happier ending, which just totally didn't work.
Yeah.
And I can see why it wouldn't work. I mean, that's just I can't see that. You just sit through the first hour and a half of this hour and 40-minute movie, and you're like, there's no way this can end well. You can't do what they did with this movie emotionally and have it end well. That's just crazy.
No. The one that I read about and surprised me was the way they were going to try to do a musical ending to it and have everybody dance on the chorus line to some music and pull it all together.
Clearly somebody's been watching Blazing Saddles recently.
I think so. And Slim Pickens was just going to appear out of nowhere and punch Kurt Russell in the stomach, go, screw you, I work for Mel Brooks.
Sounds like steam escaping.
I would really love to read the novella. I need to find it somewhere.
Yeah, I'd read that. I haven't read it yet.
I'm
not 100% sure I've seen the 51 version of the movie. I'm not sure I've seen it. I may have and just don't remember it, but
I don't know if I still do, but I had it on VHS and watched the heck out of it. And then several years ago, I watched they played it on Turner Classic Movies, and apparently that was the unedited version, because I'm sitting there going, I don't remember that. I don't remember that scene. I don't remember that scene. It's yeah. I mean, it was edited pretty good. Now, why, I don't know. But it's a good movie. I mean, it's a nice little spooky film.
But I didn't see that one as a monster movie either. I saw that as a fear movie. Something to get people afraid, but not of the
super
around the corner monster.
Yeah. Yeah, don't be afraid of the super carrot.
That's right. Super carrots unite.
Which, a little bit of trivia. Who played the Thing in that version?
That's too easy.
Some people may not know that.
Oh, that's true. He had a hitch in his leg on the opening credits of his TV series.
Yep, TV star. It was a Western, his TV series.
Mm-hmm.
Very popular Western.
In the original version also had Kenneth Tobey as the star, who I'm kind of a minor fan of his. Fans of film of more recent, if you've seen Amazon Women on the Moon, the actual film Amazon Women on the Moon in the film actually stars Kenneth Tobey as the lead.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah. Right, Les?
I didn't realize that.
Yep.
Neat.
Which makes all that much more enjoyable for us old folk.
Yeah. Since that was clearly a kind of a parody of 50s sci-fi stuff. 50 sci-fi films.
Pretty much.
And it amazed me, and of course now we're going to spend time on the 50s version. I never knew him by face, but I knew the name. He has a small bit part in the film. You see him a bit, but he doesn't have a lot of lines. But once he starts talking, you're like, I know that voice. And it was Paul Frees.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Wow. Neat.
Of course, known for Boris of Rocky and Bullwinkle, if I'm not mistaken. He did that right.
He did, he did Bullwinkle and some others.
A lot of the Rankin Bass specials. He was Burgermeister, Meisterburger. Oh God, so many. Just a lot of. He did a lot of voice work. So you would recognize the voice if you heard him on the special. So it was kind of cool also to kind of have that kind of a ringing of the bell, I guess you would say.
Yeah, very true.
Have y'all seen the prequel that came out a few years ago?
No.
I've seen it listed, but I never sat down to watch it.
Okay. It was interesting.
Is it filmed in Norwegian?
It was filmed in Norwegian Blue. There you go. No, never mind. It was interesting. It's one of those did it really need to be made? But if you're a fan of the 82 film, it's kind of a nice little, okay, this is how this happened, or this is how things got to the point to where the 82 film starts off. So, I mean, it's nice, but, I wouldn't really go out of my way to see it.
See, to me, one of the interesting things about that is that, that came out in 2011.
Yeah.
The prequel to a 1982 movie.
Well, and they did their darndest try to not, they tried to do this kind of in tone. I mean, obviously they use CGI on certain things, but they try to keep it in scope and all that to how things were done in '82. So I'll give them credit for that, for trying. But it really didn't need to be made because everything was pretty much explained, or you can figure out pretty quick what happened before opening credits.
Mm-hmm.
It's all explained. So,
And that it took 30 years to make that is a pretty strong hint as to kind of how the 82 film was, how the reaction was to it. It was not loved when it came out.
no.
It was considered a bomb by pretty much every measure.
Well, it didn't help that it came out the same day as Blade Runner. So,
Yeah, I mean, it was 82. I mean, think about it. You got Blade Runner, you got E.T., you got, God, what other movies came out that? 82 was a big, big year for movies. And so, yeah, this one didn't do all that great. And so it took a few years for people to start realizing, hey, that actually wasn't half bad.
right.
So for it to take 30 years to get around to making the prequel, is
Well, that's after several attempts to try to do a sequel, which I'm like, okay, you really don't need to do a sequel. I mean, yeah, the ending is left kind of open, but a lot of Carpenter's films do that, and I don't have a problem with that.
right. It's kind of almost a trademark of his, and yeah, I think it works most of the time.
It's just you don't have to have everything wrapped up in a bowl. Let's come out of the theater and go, okay, so what happens next? And that's kind of the fun of some things,
Right.
because
You're not going to do it any favors by writing a perfect ending, and like I said, it works most of the time for the way Carpenter ends movies. I don't have a problem with it at all.
Well, you said it earlier about Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Mentioning that one, it's similar in the shapeshifter and such, but it didn't end open. Or, I mean, it didn't close itself. It was there. The final scene was him staring off and wondering what's going to happen to the world.
they're coming, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's part of the deal. I mean, that's part of building that fear. It's like, oh crap, if there's a way to blur the lines between the film and reality, that's how you do it. That's how you want to end your movie.
Yes. That was very effective. Thought it was well written, well done.
Mm-hmm.
And I am not a big fan of Kurt Russell.
Really?
No, because all I can remember him in were the Disney movies.
The computer working issues?
Yeah. Things like that.
Okay.
He did other stuff, man. He did other stuff.
Yeah, kind of did.
He displayed some range.
Yeah, like Executive Decision.
That was one of the weirdest movie experiences I ever had. But yeah.
I just watched them the other night in Poseidon, which I was like, okay, I knew they did it, but I was like, why did they remake this film? And I watched it and I was like, yeah, they didn't need to remake this film.
Right, they shouldn't have, right? Yeah, no interest there.
Yeah. Interesting bit of trivia. This was the first film that Carpenter did not score his film. I already mentioned the music earlier. Was Ennio Morricone, who has done a lot of awesome music. Right off the bat, a few dollars more to Good, Bad, and Ugly. Once Upon a Time in America, Untouchables, just to name a few. Great composer. And I like the music. I like the music in the film.
Yeah, not surprisingly though, when presented a choice, Carpenter did choose the electronic music.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was the 80s after all. And Carpenter is nothing if not entrenched in the 80s.
It was the 80s, man.
Well, everybody was enamored with the synthesizers. Easy for me to say.
To a fault. People you would think would know better. But anyway.
So all in all, 2 thumbs up or 3 thumbs up in this case?
Yeah, I'll go 8 out of 10 on this one. I'd say this is slightly better than The Fog.
Maybe a 7.
Man, you're tough.
No, not really.
Not really.
Name a 10 right now, quickly. Pop up.
10.
Dude.
10 was a 10.
Was it? Really?
Yeah.
No.
You had great slapstick. You had great lines. I thought it was great.
Especially on Bo Derek.
I was thinking about the hitting the dog because the lady would fart. I thought that was a great line. We just hit the dog.
Can't say I've seen that movie all the way through.
And
And can't say I was paying a lot of attention to the plot and stuff like that when I was watching it. But anyway.
What?
Yes, there was a plot. Get off your high horse.
There's something high, but never mind.
I would say 8 out of 10. I think you're right. I mean, it was trying to be objective because I do like Carpenter, but I mean, I'm a Carpenter fan. But yeah, I think this is a really good one.
Yep. I mean, it's got its flaws, so it's not a perfect movie, but
No.
it's still a good movie.
Oh yeah.
No
Oh
doubt
yeah,
about it.
it is good. It's a true Christmas movie.
Embodying the true spirit of Christmas,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically kill everyone. But anyway,
Well, instead of spreading cheer, it's spreading a virus. So
yep.
Same
Its
thing.
alien DNA.
Kind
Close
of the same
enough.
thing. Yep.
It's the
That
spirit
works.
of giving.
Yep. Pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. On that note, we're going to take a quick break and come back with our weekly picks. And we're back. It's time for our weekly picks. And leading off today is Les.
Of all the luck. My first choice is from DC, Gotham City Garage, #1. It's a new series based on mainly the statues that DC has put out. It's a futuristic storyline. I don't see it being attached to the current DC universe because Lex Luthor has been governor for decades, and he's turned Gotham City into a utopia.
Woo-hoo.
But his city isn't the greatest for all people. If what they call the Lexus Network, Lexes, Lexus Network, misfires, somebody could wake up and step out of line. What happens then is the Bat and what they call his minions are there to restore the status quo, but it's pretty brutal the way they handle it. The main character of the story is Kara Gordon, who is a tech, and she ends up into the Freescape, and here she finds some friends at a place called Gotham City Garage. This will be a non-running story, and I'm really looking forward to this for another Elseworlds feel. And I got a feeling that this will be pretty much of a hit.
Yeah, it seems like they're going back to the well based off the success of the bombshells. So,
Very, very true.
If it's as successful as the bombshells is, then yeah, they've got another hit on their hands. Alrighty, I am up next, and keeping in spirit of the season, my first choice is from Archie Comics. It is Archie Halloween Spectacular. This book is going to be it's going to be a compilation of a bunch of fun Halloween tales featuring the guys from Riverdale. So, what can I say? I mean, it's Archie, it's Halloween. You know, it's going to be a lot of good fun. Enough said.
Yep. Should be cute.
Yep. Should be.
I think so.
Alrighty, Mikey.
All right. Well, on a darker note, my first pick is a Dynamite book, and it is Kiss Vampirella #5. This is the end of the arc, probably the series, who knows. But it's another one of Dynamite's fun little team-up books, whereas the band Kiss gets to work with Vampirella, who in this kind of setting joined a rock band. And this is clearly set kind of when Kiss was big, so in the late 70s, early 80s. It's not real specific about when it's set, but yeah, and so there are a bunch of demons trying to destroy the music world as it stands, and Kiss and Vampirella's band are going to team up and save rock and roll. And like I said, this has actually been a pretty fun little. This team up has worked a lot better than I thought it would from issue 1 on, and so it'll be cool to see how they wrap it up, and how the big battle looks, and if they leave any options for maybe doing a little more of this. Who knows? We'll see.
Cool. Very cool. Alrighty, Les, you're up again.
So soon? Okay. Coming from Titan Comics, Peter Milligan and Alberto Fauché bring you the return of Dan Dare. Dan Dare was a comic book hero from Britain for oh so many years, and now they are bringing in new adventures. I'm ready for this because this has got espionage, it's got space, it's got the future. It's all over the place, but I remember reading a lot of the strips that were first brought together to make the comic books, and this one I think is going to hit it too, because it's the earlier stuff was tongue-in-cheek. I got a feeling that they're going to be a little more gritty in this one, but hopefully this will hang around because it looks like a lot of fun.
Very cool.
Yep, that spy thing has been doing well lately. There's been a lot of good spy stuff going on out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially from Titan.
Yep.
So, yeah, that should be interesting, definitely. Mm-hmm. For my second choice, I am turning toward Heavy Metal Magazine, and it's the first issue in a new series called Tarna, based off the character that was in the magazines, and of course was in the first animated film. The issue is written by Alex DeCampi, with art by Stefan Rowe, and the cover on both covers are done by Alex Ross. So I'm excited about this one. I like to see how I never read the the strip that was in the magazine, but I've watched the movie several times, and I always liked the Tarna story. So, and it's Alex DeCampi, so it should be a really well written story, and then Stefan Rose, awesome artist. So this should be a blast. Can't wait.
Yep, sounds good.
Good choice.
Alrighty, Mikey.
Alrighty, my second pick is an IDW book, and I'm going with Time and Vine, number 4. I think this is probably the end of this arc, and so this series is set around a winery in which people can. Well, it's obviously they restrict it pretty well, but people can go down into the basement, and if they drink wine of a certain vintage, they then travel back in time to that year. And so the two main characters have been bouncing around a bit and learning, in some cases, exactly what they wanted to know, and in other cases, way more than they wanted to know. And so the issue 3 left us on kind of a cliffhanger during the Civil War, and so it'll be cool to see how they get out of that and where this whole thing ends up going. And this is written and drawn by Tom Zoller, who does some really good stuff. He's a really good writer, especially of dialogue. I love the banter that this guy writes. It's just amazing. So, like I said, I think this is probably the end of this series. Maybe there'll be a 5th one. Maybe we'll get lucky. Who knows? But from the description, it sounds like the end. So, check it out.
Hopefully, everybody's been following this one from the start, because it is a great read.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we're fans of Tom Zayer, and this has been another really good read. Really hate that it may be coming to an end, but
well, it'll be fun to see what he does next.
So. Oh, definitely. All right, honorable mentions, Les.
My honorable mention is from Zenoscope. This was a 6-issue series that I really liked. It's called Evil Heroes. In this one, they promote it as with great power comes great corruption. And it's humans fighting the superheroes. Climactic ending, and it was thoroughly enjoyable to read as single issues, but now you can get it in a trade. Joe Brusha, Zarin, and Zamora bring this one to you.
Cool.
Yep. Alrighty. For my honorable mention, I'm turning toward DC Comics, and it is Volume 1 Omnibus of Justice League International. Yes, that's right. It's the Wahaha Days collected in a massive omnibus. Collects Justice League 1 through 6, Justice League International 7 through 25, Justice League America 26 through 30, Justice League International Annuals 1 through 3, and Justice League Europe 1 through 6. Written by Keith Giffen and J.M. DeMatteis, John Ostrander, with art by, so many people. Giffen, Mike McCone, Ty Templeton, Bart Sears, Bill Willingham, and the list just keeps on going and going. Love this run. This is where things where the Justice League went a little more humorous, but not at the cost of being just a total parody of a superhero team. Big time fun, and I'm glad to see that this is getting getting omnibus treatment. Definitely worth it.
Cool. Certainly sounds big.
Mm-hmm. just a little big.
It is well worth it. This was a great run, and tipped both directions. It was so fun, but then they had some really good ideas for a storyline.
Yep. And before recording, we were talking. We normally go over our picks, and I told him that I was doing this one. And Les had mentioned the famous One Punch, which was, I believe, in issue 2. And the fact that here's 30-something years later, that's still referenced and that still brings a smile or a chuckle to people, that's impressive. That one little gag, that one little incident is still so fondly remembered. That's pretty freaking impressive.
Yes.
Pretty cool.
Yep. And Mikey?
You almost said last but not least, but we all know I'm least. Anyway, yes, I have an honorable mention.
Wow.
It is from Image Comics, because I couldn't not sneak one in here. But this is Redlands #3. This is a book that is getting some buzz, and rightly so, because it is a truly beautiful book. It is drawn by Vanessa Del Rey and colored and written by Jordi Belair, two comics professionals at the top of their game. And this book is just amazingly beautiful. And I will admit, I have not done it as a pick until now, because the first issue was a little strange. The second issue made it make sense, and it turns out that this is actually a really interesting crime story. So dealing with witches in a town in Florida. So there's a lot of fun stuff to be had, and it's definitely not for kids, but it's again, I can't stress how beautiful this book is. It's amazing.
Yep. Agreed. I'm glad Les agrees too. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, I'd be stumping for Recall.
Okay. Recall. Oh, never mind.
Ricola.
There you go.
Sorry, that was a different problem.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Alrighty. Any special mentions this week?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Not for me.
Les?
I don't know of anything.
Alrighty. Then let's do our regular shout-outs. First off, Manny the Martyr for the music that we use on our podcast. Thank you, guys. There will be a link in the show notes, and obviously you can go to our website to get a link to their page and check out their music. I definitely recommend you do that. Also want to thank the fine folks of Potter and Family on Twitter for spreading the word of the fellowship. If you're looking for any kind of podcast, whatever you're looking for, you more than likely will find it there. All you need to do is go to Twitter. Don't necessarily have to have an account. Just put in the search, hashtag Potter and Family, one word, and have fun. Thank you guys for your support. And obviously you, dear listener, thank you for downloading and listening to today's episode, and thank you for checking out our previous episodes. We're always interested in your feedback, and there are several ways you can contact us. Obviously, email at thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, or you can hit us on the website on the About Us tab. There's a contact form you can fill out there, or through social media. We are on Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks. That's all one word. We are obviously on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Feel free to like us and follow us there. Mikey and I have our own personal Twitter accounts. Feel free to follow us there. Mike is at Mikey Geek, and I'm at Tom TC Geek. And wherever you download our podcast from, whether it's through iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or just listen to us through on YouTube. If you could please rate us, whatever system they use. And if you have a couple extra minutes, a review would be awesome as well. Thank you very much for that. Did I miss anything?
No, I think that's it.
Alrighty. So, any final thoughts?
Just thanks, everybody.
I'm going to say the same. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening today, guys. It's much appreciated. We love you guys. Y'all have a good week. And until next time, read more comics and support your local stores. We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,